Hi! The other day, something happened that made me feel really uncomfortable. And I haven't actually felt this way in a long time. So I thought it would be interesting to share this with you. So for those of you who don't know, I am from Malaysia. And in my early 20s, mid 20s, I used to do a lot of press interviews because I worked a lot in the entertainment industry. I was hosting on TV and radio, and occasionally reporters would do a story, whether it's for the newspaper or for magazines. And from my experience of working with local newspapers here in Malaysia, they would take a few dozen, close to even 100 photos, and they always picked the one or two photos that it's like the worst photo out of the bunch. I don't know why that always ends up happening. I told myself then that, you know what, if I'm going to agree to do any more press interviews, I would want to look at the photographs and vet through them before they actually get published. So recently, a reporter from a local newspaper reached out to me and asked if I would do an interview. And it was to talk about happiness. So I was like, sure, of course, let's do it. So before the interview started, the photographer started taking photos. I now know to ask the reporter and the photographer if I can delete those photos that I don't think is suitable. And the photographer, he didn't look too happy about it, but I was like, okay. Nobody said no. So we went ahead, took 3 to 4 dozen photos, and after we're done, I reminded the photographer like, hey, don't forget, before you go, let me have a look at the photos. I can see that he is a lot reluctant, but he didn't say no either. So we sat down, and I could tell he was unhappy because when he passed me his camera, I asked him, how do you use this? How do I look at the photos? And what do I press to delete the ones that I don't think are suitable? And he was so reluctant. He was just like, just scroll here. It's not like, okay, so this is what you press and this is what you do. So from that interaction, I already know that he's not very happy that I'm doing this. So I'm going through the photos. In my peripheral vision, I can see the photographer on my right and the reporter on my left. And I can see the photographer looking really upset. And he goes, why are you deleting so many photos? And I'm like, these are not suitable. And then I asked the reporter, I'm like, you're going to probably use 1 or 2 photos, right? Because I know this from past experiences. They'll take like 50 to 100 photos and they'll use 1 or 2. I reassured him and said, don't worry, there are a lot of photos here. There'll be more than enough to choose from. And there's so many that I had to like go through them one by one and just like deleting those that I really felt wasn't suitable. I didn't want to leave any options in there that I didn't want them to use. As I'm looking through the photos, I can feel the resentment. Even the reporter could see and feel how unhappy the photographer was. And so she was leaning over and like looking at what I'm deleting. So I felt a lot of pressure from both ends, and I started to feel like, you know what, maybe this is not worth it. Maybe I should just like forget about this and just let them pick one, and maybe I should just drop this. It's just so uncomfortable. Can you imagine you're sitting between 2 people who clearly disapprove, and their vibe is a vibe of like pure hostility? And what's interesting is that they didn't say, no, you have to stop and I have to take the camera back now. They just allowed me to continue doing it, but they also wanted me to know that they're not happy. And in my peripheral vision, as I'm going through the photos, I could see the photographer being more and more upset. He was just... So I was feeling extremely uncomfortable with it. And I just wanted to say, forget about this. I'm just going to pass the camera back to him and call it a day, right? I don't want to go through this. But then I thought to myself, Xandria, focus on your objective. Like, there is a reason you wanted to do this. And if that is their reaction, then I don't have to react to it. Now, as I'm thinking these thoughts, I could also acknowledge what my body is feeling, because I noticed my heart like thumping really fast, and I realized that I'm really nervous. I'm nervous and I'm a little bit scared in a way, and I could feel myself reacting to this negativity and hostility. I felt defensive and I could feel myself being more and more frustrated. I wished that they were more understanding, and perhaps if they're not happy, maybe we could talk about it instead of this vibe of disapproval. And I was feeling like I already regretted agreeing to this interview. But then I realized, like, if I continue going down this direction of feeling and thoughts, I would just be reacting to their reaction. I would either react by being as hostile as them and as unfriendly as them, as like a defensive mechanism, or I would just have given up and said, okay, well, you're right, have your camera back. Right? And I wouldn't have met my own objective. So I had to really focus on my objective, and I had to decide to not join in this negativity. And to be able to do that, I had to quickly realize something about why I was uncomfortable. And I think it's because the discomfort of being disliked was very, very high, because they were making it very clear, especially the photographer, that they do not approve and that they do not like this, which made me feel like they had a negative opinion of me. They probably thought I was fussy, maybe unreasonable. I don't know what's going through their mind. And I think that on some level, it really mattered to me. Like, I wanted people in general to like me and think that I'm a nice person. And by standing up for my objective and standing up for what I want and communicating to them what I want, I was putting myself in a position to be disliked and to be disapproved of. And that's not something that my ego likes. As I'm going through the photos, I'm processing all of what I'm feeling and how I'm reacting, and I realized this. And so then I was able to be okay with the discomfort of being disliked. And I'm like, you know what, Xandria, you can't control how people think. From their perspective, this is very difficult for them. Maybe they're just not used to it, and maybe they're having a bad day, or maybe they just don't really know how to communicate when something is bothering them. And this is clearly bothering them. So they communicate by disapproval, they communicate with body language. It feels really personal, but I know it's not personal. And so I breathe and I go through it. And when I'm done, I pass the camera back to him and I go, oh my God, thank you so much for your patience, for your time. And he just took the camera back and didn't even want to look at me, didn't want to acknowledge me. It was as if I was invisible. Like I wasn't there. You know how it feels like when someone blanks you completely? It was like that. So he was just keeping his camera. It was extremely obvious and very, very rude. And at this point, I didn't want to react to his reaction, but I also didn't want to condone this behavior. I wanted to address it. And so I said, hey, are you okay? Are you upset? I wanted to call it out. Let's talk about it. If you are upset, maybe we can talk about it. And I do feel that I was recording this and then I didn't realize that the camera stopped recording. This entire experience was so interesting because I've not been tested in so long. I realized that one of the key things that I really needed to practice was being okay with being disliked. I think that on some level, I've always wanted people to like me, to be like a nice person, for people to think I'm a nice person. I didn't want to be difficult. I don't want people to think that, oh my God, this girl, she's such a diva. And it was hard for me to be in this situation. But because it was so hard, it was also so good. I mean, when else would I have the chance to practice like this? And I feel so grateful for this experience because I feel like I understand myself so much better now. And it was also an opportunity for me to practice understanding towards people whom I don't necessarily agree with when it comes to their behavior. I don't have to react to that, and I can understand that it's also not comfortable for them. I can imagine it's not pleasant for them as well. It really helps me practice being the kind of person I want to be, regardless of how other people are. So even when people are not giving warmth or they are not friendly, I can still be the kind of person that I guess I want to be and that I'm proud to be, and not just because people are not giving me positivity and warmth, then I'll have to withdraw as well. I don't want to do that. I really believe that it's okay. People are human, we're all human, and everyone is really entitled to feel the way they do, and everyone has reasons for feeling the way they do, and ultimately, all of us want to be happy. We all want to be emotionally positive. All of us do. But sometimes we're not able to deal with our emotions and therefore react according to them. So overall, I thought that was a great experience, and I just wanted to share that with you. I make videos on happiness and how to live each day with joy, not because I'm an expert and not because I'm perfect, but because I'm human. I go through very similar challenges and emotional experiences as any other human being. And as I experience life and understand myself better, I'll continue sharing these stories with you and I think they're fireworks. I don't know if you can hear it. But anyway, I'll continue sharing these stories with you, and I hope that it helps. Thank you for watching, and be happy always.